Welcome to Between the Threads, a podcast exploring the threads that connect us: story, memory, identity, and meaning, and how they weave the fabric of peace in our lives and communities. Between the Threads is a joint initiative between Kahani and Narratives. Kahani is a nonprofit organization that amplifies storytelling for peace building, and Narratives is an award-winning planning and design firm based in Winnipeg, Canada. Welcome to today's episode of Between the Threads. On today's episode, we have the incredible Amna Burki with us. Amna believes stories are bridges connecting cultures, generations, and hearts. Through her organization called Stories Matter, Amna amplifies underrepresented voices using the art of oral storytelling to foster connection, healing, and understanding. With over 20 years of experience across community and nonprofit spaces, Amna brings empathy, insight, and intention to every story she shares. Fueled by steep chai and a deep belief that every story matters, she invites audiences to listen deeply and speak bravely. Amna, assalamu alaikum. Welcome so much to our studio today.
Walaikum salam. Thank you for having me.
So first things first, I want to hear about this chai. What is Amna's approach to chai?
A shortcut to making desi chai. So what I do is I steep it with the patti,
Of course.
and I just cover it for a while, like 2-3 minutes, then add doodh to it, which is the milk, and then take the tea bag out and then add sugar. So that's my way of making like a doodh patti.
I would offer that definitely is a bit of a shortcut. But it's also like it fuels your soul when you need it. So my approach to chai, when I need a quick chai, that is very much what I do. I might sometimes throw elaichi in it, cardamom in it,
Yes.
because that somehow makes the shortcut not feel as shortcutty anymore. But the real dudpati would be like just start with milk, let it boil for a long time.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll add gur.
Oh, good. That sounds amazing.
I know. So Amna, tell us what Amna was like growing up.
Amna was like growing up. That's very interesting. So I grew up in many parts of Pakistan, I would say. My father moved around a lot. My parents moved around a lot. I'm the youngest of 3 siblings. So I would say I was born in Rawalpindi and then I moved to Quetta for a couple of years.
Okay.
And then also to Karachi. So I've been in most parts of Pakistan, and every time it was a culture shock. Every one of those provinces has a different language.
Very diverse.
In fact, when I was in Karachi for over like a year and a half, I had to learn Sindhi. So I remember I had to bribe someone with chocolates and ask them like, what are these 3 or 4 letter dotted alphabets? Some of them had 4 dots. Like we have Alif, B, P. I've never seen, but Sindhi has 4 dots as well. So
interesting. So can you read it?
I could read at the time, and to pass the exam, it was grade 4. So I got through the Sindhi exam.
That's incredible. Like I don't have any comprehension of Sindhi, but it just sounds like
it's a beautiful language.
Soft, beautiful language.
Yes, it is. And you also notice the difference in Punjab, like you're not really required to do the language in your schools.
True.
It's very welcoming to people from any part of Pakistan. But in other places, like the language is part of the curriculum, the local language. So
what brought Amna to Canada and to Winnipeg?
I met my husband while I was doing my master's in the UK.
Okay.
And, it seemed like maybe I should acclimatize to winter. He grew up here. And at the time he had promised me that we might travel somewhere else or live somewhere else, but that hasn't happened for 25 years. But I've really grown to love where I live, and Manitoba's been my home for the last 25 years.
I've always resisted this idea of Winnipeg being home. And, there's so much there to unpack. But for me, it was a few years ago. I can't remember where I was for work. And on the way back, as the plane was landing,
Mhm.
I remember seeing the Winnipeg, rivers from the plane and feeling this warmth in my heart and thinking, oh, like this is step
Yeah.
one. Like I think we're starting to accept Winnipeg as home.
Mhm.
What was it like for you? Um, yeah, what was it like for you coming from such a different place, such a different environment to come to Winnipeg?
I came in summer, so that was a good
Oh,
idea.
that's huge. Yep, yep. Big
It's
big
a lot
plus.
brutal if you come here in winter. I think the first thing I noticed was how flat everything was. Like you can literally see, and I've never been in a place like that before. Like
Mm.
it's really like, you know, so unique that you can see miles on end.
Yeah,
So
it's
that
true.
really strikes you. And I think also the color of the soil here, like,
Oh,
in Pakistan, it's lighter, right?
yeah, yeah,
A
yeah.
lot lighter. So those were the two things that I really noticed right away.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, like I hadn't thought about the color of the soil
Hmm.
till till just now, so that
Yeah.
makes sense. Um, and of course, you're probably still getting used to the weather, or have you just accepted that that's how it's going to be?
Uh, the weather, yeah, like I think it's always hits you when it's winter. I
Yeah,
don't know if I'll ever accept it,
yeah.
but life still happens. Like, we're so used to it now. I mean,
Yeah.
like today, what is it? Minus 40 or
I
something?
don't know, minus 50 with everything considered.
And yet we're here,
Yes,
right?
we're here.
So
So does Canada now feel like home?
it does. And at the same time, like, I don't know where home is at the moment. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Like, I
mm,
grew up as a child of refugee parents
mm,
from India. So
mm,
again, like, was that really home? They had all these memories of partition and what their home, and I've never seen where they grew up. Right? Like,
wow,
I never saw the homes they had in India.
right.
And if you're Pakistani, it's not
Yeah.
easy to access that place, right? So for me, it's always been this, like, even in our family, this idea of loss of your land was such a
Mhm,
part of. So I always tell my children, for instance, that, I was born in Pakistan, my parents were born in India, and you guys are born in Canada. So I don't know where, if you guys decide to have kids, I don't
mm,
know where that will be because,
right.
there's so much change in the family history
Yeah.
that that sense of belonging, I do believe that I created for others through storytelling, but I
Mm.
don't know if I actually feel it all
Oh,
the time.
that's so interesting. I was recently
Mhm.
reflecting on this idea of where is home and what
Mhm.
that means. And I was exposed to this concept of a third culture kid.
Mhm.
And eh, if there's psychologists listening to this, they'll probably say that I've misunderstood it or
Mhm.
misinterpreted it. But this idea of third culture kid really
Mhm.
is that at the heart of it, is that you connect more with people who've had similar
Mhm.
experiences, particularly when the geography is not
Mhm.
as similar. So you're
Right.
born in a culture that is not your original culture,
Mhm.
and your parents too have migrated from somewhere, and
Right.
then you have a
Right.
third generation, right? So
Yeah.
I feel like in a way we carry
Mhm.
these fragments of
Yes.
identity from different
Mhm.
places that we grow up in.
Yes, for sure.
What You talked a little bit about your work in storytelling.
Mhm.
And I remember, Amna, when I first met you, I was so intrigued with your work, especially with folklore.
Mhm.
So tell me first what folklore means to you.
So, it was an accidental discovery.
Mm,
Absolutely. It was in the middle of or the beginning of COVID. I was working for this nonprofit here in Winnipeg, and they were part of a Families Canada project on integrating newcomers, seniors through volunteering. Like,
Okay.
so it would be newcomers, seniors, so older adults who have come to Canada, and you can imagine for them, like settlement is even harder. And for them to then volunteer with preschoolers so that they feel this, a family away from family. And in this project, so I was very close to them, and then COVID happened. Suddenly, you have, no way of gathering them, especially if they're older adults, they're more at risk of COVID. So somebody who was my work mentor, Melinda Pasquale, if you're listening to this, this is your part. She's like, why don't you try oral storytelling with them? And I literally didn't understand what she meant. So she's like, I'm gonna give you a story. Go prepare it. Don't use the words. Just do it your own way. So read the script of the story, but do it naturally. And I still didn't know what she meant until I tried it out. And from that day onwards, I was hooked. I was like, oh my goodness, this is oral storytelling. And at that point, I didn't realize that I'm coming from a heritage of oral storytelling, right? Like I didn't know it was oral storytelling at the time. So, just getting into it, and I'm that type of person. When I get obsessed with something, I go on.
Awesome.
And lucky for me, because it was COVID, most of the storytellers, right, were offering courses online. So it really helped to learn the skills at the time. And my proudest moment is reviving one of my grandmother's stories.
Oh, beautiful.
And I've shared that now, like I've shared it at my nephew's wedding in California. It's been part of a museum project in Britain. It's been, I went to a storytelling festival in Morocco. So I shared that. So for me, it's also keeping that family legacy and family stories. Because if you think about it, when my grandmother had to migrate, like it was forced migration, if you like, all they could carry were the stories with them.
Wow.
And it's a beautiful tale. It's a folk tale, and there's so many levels of meaning in it now that I've come back to it as an adult.
Wow.
Right? Like this, it's a story which has so many layers. And I think one thing I've realized about folklore is that it's the ordinary people's way of passing on information and knowledge and wisdom that they want the next generation to know. And the way folk tales work is they're very memorable.
Sure.
They're very memorable. The language is simple. There's built-in repetition. So it helps to remember. Now, having said that, because we go through Western education and we don't value oral storytelling as much as we should, and many of our cultures, traditional cultures, are built on it. So it is sometimes a dying art. Like if I hadn't rediscovered it, if you like, that story, the way my grandmother used to share, would have died out with her generation.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's the beauty of it. I also feel like once you're sharing those tales, like people are bringing their own stories from their culture. And there's so much that is similar. And at the same time, there's so much that's different. Right. So you get a taste of what it's like. What's important to a culture, because those are the folk tales that they're sharing.
We'll be right back.
Yeah. How does one find that story?
So a lot of times I prefer stories that are actually still part of oral history or oral culture, and they're coming to you naturally, like my grandmother's story.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like there's books that have been compiled of stories from different cultures, but mind you, many of those books, compilations of oral stories or folk tales or fairy tales, are collections that weren't originally like people who were telling the oral stories. So think about the Grimm's fairy tales. There were two brothers who collected those stories. They went around, in Europe, in Germany, to collect those stories. Similarly, there were a lot of British scholars who came to South Asia and they collected the local, but they're sometimes missing the element what makes the oral story come alive. Because once it's written, it's not the same thing. There's a difference in how you write a story versus how you tell it orally.
Yeah. So where would someone find the story of your grandmother?
So it's online. It's
Okay.
I have that, and I'm happy to share it whenever you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Amna, we would love to hear that story about your grandmother.
I would love to share it. Soumya, I'm not sure if you know this Punjabi word called kuja.
Yeah,
you do?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so what does it mean for you?
Kuja?
Yeah.
Like to search?
No, in her story, my grandmother's story, kuja was like a small clay pot where you store things.
Kada. Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's like not used anymore. So this
Okay.
is like my grandmother was almost a century old when she passed away.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can imagine she was born in 1903. So she lived for a
Right.
long time. We were like 70 years apart. So at family gatherings, now I grew up with her. Like, so whenever we weren't like traveling to other parts of Pakistan or living in our family home was always in Rawalpindi. So, the twin city to Islamabad. And that's where she lived post partition. And my father would always ask her, like, can you please share the story of the Kuja? And then she would gather all her grandchildren and talk about the story of Kuja. And this story is something like, I had to think about, like, what was the story about? And I absolutely love it because, like I said, the layers of meanings in it are just absolutely beautiful. And there's a part that I want you to join in.
Sure. Okay.
And the ones watching, you can join us. Yeah. Akbar the Great Mughal emperor, was angry. He was so angry. He was seething in rage. Where is my favorite courtier? Why isn't he here? Guards, go get him. And the guards went and they found the courtier trying to calm his young child who was crying, and he wouldn't stop. And the courtier said to the guards, please, when my child calms down, I will come. My wife is not well. I have no choice but to stay back a bit. So when he came to Akbar, Akbar said, why are you late? We have an empire to run. Why are you late? I'm sorry, Your Highness, but my child was crying and there's no way I could leave him. We have an empire to run and you can't manage one child? What's wrong with you? One child you can't take care of? Your Highness, please, if you're not satisfied with my explanation, you may punish me. But before that, please, I'll be my child and you be me and see how hard it is to calm a crying child. Please give me this one opportunity. Nonsense of a game, but go ahead. Go ahead. I'm my child now. Can you join me? What's wrong? What do you want? You work for the emperor, right? And you can give me anything? I want an elephant. You want an elephant? How hard is that? Guards, elephant. This elephant is so nice. It's so big. Can I ride on it? I can ride on it. Look, so amazing. What do you want now? You wanted an elephant. You got an elephant. What do you want now? I want a kuja. You want a kuja? That silly thing that ordinary people put food in, that small clay pot like this? Do you want a kuja? Yeah, I want a kuja. I want a kuja. I want a kuja. No. Okay. Guards, kuja. This kuja is so nice. It's got paint on it. Let me take a look inside. There's nothing inside. What do you want now? You wanted an elephant, you got an elephant. You wanted a kuja, you got a kuja. What do you want now? I know what I want. I want you to take that elephant and I want you to put it in that little kuja. Right now. Stop. I get it. I'm not going to punish you because I know now that taking care of one child is harder than running an empire. Taking care of one child is harder they're running an entire empire.
Mm.
Uh, so this was the story. And
Wow.
honestly, at the time when I was a child, when I used to listen to it, it felt like, I'm just imagining that child, I'm imagining the elephant. But when I'm coming to it as a mother myself,
Yeah.
it has a deeper meaning, just reflecting on why my father would ask, like, this raising a child is a sacred job. It's not easy. So maybe they wanted to know from their mother that, this is sacred and it takes effort.
Yeah.
It's more sacred than actually running an empire. And I have a friend who's Despina, who's a storyteller from Greece.
Okay.
And she told me something fascinating. She's like, Amna, I see a different meaning to this. She said that she feels like the people who are like Akbar or people in power who have a lot of, they don't really see this like because, they have nannies and their servants to look after the kids. But for someone like, an ordinary person, they don't have those, the same level of help, So, and it goes so well with this idea of it takes village to raise a child.
We'll be right back.
What really stood out for me in the story, one, you're an incredible storyteller. Thank you for sharing that. I was with you in that scene as you were describing it in the dialogue. What stood out for me in that story was just how many, like you said earlier, how many layers there were to it, and also how telling that story can open up so many additional conversations. So yes, the story was about Akbar recognizing the what it takes to raise a child. And if we take the story forward, did the courtier also recognize what it's like to run an entire empire? Right? So there's an opportunity there for mutual
Absolutely.
understanding of responsibilities and how running an entire empire is a completely different responsibility than
Yes.
raising a child.
Yes.
Both important.
Absolutely.
And perhaps Akbar can't raise a child, and perhaps that courtier can't run an empire.
Yes.
Right? So there's so many additional
That's
things
beautiful.
that can come out of the
Yes.
story.
Yes. And you know what you just mentioned? Another way of looking at the story, that's the beauty of bringing and sharing the story. You'll hear a perspective that even the storyteller hasn't thought of.
Right.
Just like the one you shared at the moment.
Right.
Right? So that's the beauty of seeing, like, there's so many ways of, it's the same story, but someone else has a very different view of it or are taking something different. And there's a storyteller that I trained with, Celia Lottridge. She's in Toronto. She said something really beautiful in one of the classes I took with her was that you're always going to find the story that needs to be told.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
that's
like
beautiful.
it's hitting something within you that needs to be told in some way.
Yeah.
So the story, according to her, the story finds you rather than you find the story.
Oh, I love that so much. And it also, that resonates with every cell in my body right now. Because I'm thinking, it's true. There's 20 years ago, I was telling very different stories
Right,
than the stories that I'm telling today. And, 20 years ago, I was maybe listening to a lot of the stories, from it was a lot longer than 20 years ago that I was listening to my grandparents and their stories. But today I'm telling those stories.
Right.
And it feels like the right time to be telling those stories. And before we started today, Amna, you were sharing a little bit about your parents and your grandparents' journey from India and the role that plays. What role can stories such as the ones that you tell and bring people together what role can stories play in dealing with that grief of things such as the partition?
I think it changes the way you see life, that a lot of things that we take for granted where we live, our homes, um, with like a snap of a finger, decisions that they had nothing to do with. Somebody else drew the border, somebody else decided the fee of millions. It was considered the biggest land migration of people.
Yeah.
Um, affecting so many people. But it also, I think for me, the positive thing that's come out of it is knowing that um, we need to work hard in making sure that people get along. Because one thing that my father would mention is that we got along with everyone. We don't know what happened. Why people who were neighbors then decided to kill each other, right? And we can see that, like, who's dividing people, on what basis, and who can bring people together despite their diversity. I think that's one thing I took from it. There was an overemphasis in my family for building our careers and our education skills that no one can take away. You would think that there's this new country that's created for you, but they were still facing discrimination when they came to the new place. Because,
Yeah.
and I mean, like in my family history, we have wedding songs,
Yeah.
and nobody knows the meaning of them because they're in a lost language.
No.
I'm telling you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because, songs are so
Oh my
resistant to being
gosh.
forgotten, right? So the elder women, especially, like Mehndi,
Oh,
at the time of Mehndi, they would do those songs, and everyone's wondering, what does the ba, sha, da, something? It's a whole song. And they're like, well, our ancestors lost that language. We don't know what it means. So it's
Oh,
so interesting to
incredible.
see, like, how these people have been on the move, if you like, for
Yeah.
a long time. And how does that affect us? What is your sense of belonging when
Yeah.
you're not really from that place? Um, what, right? So I think it's a sobering thought to know
Yeah.
that I don't know if I'm actually on
You're
on,
on topic,
on
100% on
topic.
topic. Yes, yes, yes. I was thinking, going back to this this notion of like lost languages and
Mhm.
wedding songs. One of my favorite memories growing up is of my popo singing tape at weddings.
Mhm.
And for those who are listening, tape, and I'll describe it, and I'd love
Yes.
to hear, Amna, if
Uh-huh.
you share what your interpretation there is. So tape are essentially these couplets. These are
Mhm.
two lines, very common that are sung at weddings. And the first line is usually similar,
Mhm.
and then the second line is where you convey a certain message.
Mhm.
And for us, it would, at weddings in particular, these would be almost like conversational. So I would
Mhm.
sing one and I would put something out there.
Mhm.
And then someone else, one of the other women, would sing that first line,
Right.
same to mine, which to me signals that they're
Mhm.
responding to me.
Right.
And then in the second line, they would offer either a
A
response
difference.
or a
Yeah.
counter message of some
Yeah.
sort. And so one of my favorite memories then is listening to my khala and Pia
Mhm.
talking about, like, singing these tappe, and they would be about falling in love.
Mhm.
They would be about betrayal. They
Mhm.
would be about lost love. They
Mhm.
would be about losing children. They
Right.
would be about losing parents. It would be about their mother-in-laws and their
Yeah.
sister-in-laws, and often they would even end up being these tappe exchange, if you will,
Mhm.
between the bride's side and the groom's
Oh,
side of
yeah.
the family.
Yeah.
So those are such beautiful
Mhm.
mechanisms also
Mhm.
of storytelling
Yes.
that can be a beautiful way to carry culture. Have you
Absolutely.
ever been able to find more about that lost language?
Not really, but
Okay.
I was so fascinated by I was on a committee at the Manitoba Museum, and I
Mm,
loved how history is really, preserved in these lands, right? Like,
mm,
if you think about it, there's so much preservation, even the artifacts. So I then decided to begin me gather some of the family stories.
Oh yeah,
And
beautiful.
unfortunately, because of COVID, we lost a lot of our elders.
Yeah.
I never interviewed my parents. They passed away earlier than my interest in preserving family
Sure.
history. But it's really, um, how do you when it comes to preserving something, you need to be in a stable stage of your own life. I think a lot of our people are just on the go, on the move. There's
Survival
something
mode.
happening. Yeah, you have to be settled for a long time in order to have artifacts, in order to have.
Oh,
Yes.
interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
You know, that reminds me, my Dada Jani would
Mhm.
always talk about, he would say, Putter Amir Zamina dene ne. Assi kahaniyan dene ne. Matlab, he would remind us that it's the rich who pass on land.
Mhm.
We pass on stories.
Yes.
And, back then I didn't
Mhm.
quite, I mean, you're, 10 years old, you don't quite
Yes.
understand that. I was definitely older than 10 years old. But now when I think about it, it's very true.
Yes.
Stories can be such a beautiful way of keeping those memories alive.
Yes.
My husband is Mennonite, and they have this book of genealogy, like a genealogy
Yeah.
book, where it's like you can tell who was born to who and
Mhm.
how that worked out, what their profession
Yes.
was. And for us, it's essentially through stories.
Yes.
So cultures that are deeply rooted
Mhm.
in oral history, that's the only way to keep that history alive.
Yes.
So my question here, I would love to hear
Mhm.
your thoughts, is how do we decide what stories to tell in the spirit of bringing people together? Because there's lots of stories of grief and hardship
Mm.
and separation and division.
Mhm.
And there are also other stories, but how do we decide, and how does that show up in your work that you do?
So a lot of my work is in places where there's a need for empowerment, healing. One of my favorite places to share stories is family violence prevention, or what you would know as domestic violence center. And you have women and children there, and I'm thinking, I may not see them again. What can I do? What can I leave them with that'll give them hope? Right? Because stories are not neutral. Many people think like all stories are good. They're not. And that's why, like, if you've seen my signature, I end with a quote from Chimamanda Adichie. I hope I'm saying her name right. And she talks about, she has a TED talk about dangers of a single story. And I think we live in, like, who has the dominant culture usually does have single stories of the others, if you like.
Right.
So part of my work is bringing those stories out and leaving people with hope. I would say there's stories that I like to share, and I'm the first audience of my own story that I'm sharing. So they give me hope.
Sure.
So I need a protagonist who means nothing but is able to achieve something, right? Because folk tales by their very nature are about the ordinary people who don't have the resources,
Yeah.
and they're coming together and making something amazing from the lack of resources they have. So that pooling of together, I mean, if you think about even the stone soup story, it's about, and the synergy of bringing those elements together to make that soup. So the magic is the community gathering, the community realizing that, our potential is so much more than we personally believe. One of my favorite stories, and this is just like a 2-minute long story,
Sure, please.
is, and I think you probably know about it because I think the first conversation we had, I mentioned this. And this is a story which anytime that I want to feel hopeful, I think of this story. And I was on a board of this wonderful organization called Peace Heroes, and they promote, stories of people who are peace heroes who've achieved so much. And I didn't know at the time that one of the people that they have in this curriculum, Wangari Maathai, she was a Kenyan activist who planted like millions of trees. She loved the story too. So
Amazing.
version of the story. There was once a forest fire and all the animals and the birds were fleeing to the safety of a lake nearby. They watched hopelessly and helplessly as their homes and their nests burned to ashes, and they couldn't do anything about it. They felt powerless. Then something curious got their attention. There was a tiniest of hummingbirds in the air, and she was going between the lake and the forest fire. And every time she would pick up just one drop of water. Do you know why? Because that's all that fit into her tiny beak. And she would go over the forest fire and release that. She went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And these animals, much bigger than her, much mightier than her, said, "Oh, hummingbird, you're going to burn your wings. What are you doing? It's useless. One drop of water at a time. What are you doing?" She paid no attention. She kept going back and forth, and bringing that one drop of water. And when she couldn't take their taunts anymore, without stopping, she said to them, and you can put your hand on your heart, she said to them, "I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing the very best I can." And now there are multiple endings to this story. In some, all the animals are inspired to put out the fire. But in many, we don't know the ending of the story because the forest fire represents so many things. It could be actual fires that we're dealing with that are increasing over every year, or it could be symbolic of fires of racism, polarization, or something we're dealing with in our personal lives. I don't know what's happening in your life. It could be a personal calamity, a health concern, a potential job loss, or changes in government that affect all of us. So those things are there. And what can we do? We can be like the hummingbird, do that tiny bit of fighting against that forest fire in our way.
Oh, I love that story so much. And yes, I remember that story. Oh, thank you for telling it. It is such a story of hope.
Absolutely.
Because it's true. Like when you're faced with so much chaos in your life, you don't know what the right solution is.
Absolutely.
Right? And often, and I think that's sort of the nature of the human experience, is we're trying to find simplicity.
Yes.
We're trying to drown out the noise and find one simple thing that we can do. But that's really not how life works. Right? It's complex and it requires acknowledgement of so many different truths and so many different realities. And in the midst of all of that, we can be the hummingbird.
Absolutely.
I love that.
So for me, the hummingbird is like being a storyteller. Can I just leave one story with people that will inspire them, right? Because if the story inspires me to realize that it doesn't matter how tiny my efforts are, it matters that I'm doing something, right? At least I'm not adding fuel to the fire.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, what a beautiful reminder. Amna, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your stories with us today. Where can people find you if they want to get connected and lean on your wisdom?
So I am on LinkedIn and I'm hoping to have a website at some point.
Amazing.
And also I'm not sure if I'm a social media type of person, but yeah, I think LinkedIn is, but I appear as Amna and B. The last name I'm not using because I experienced some issues lately where, people who are visible minorities are not safe at the moment. But yeah.
Oh, that's a whole other topic of everything that we face online in these spaces. And especially for those who call for more synergy, reconciliation, working together